So over the past few weeks, we've been thinking about work, about the places and spaces where we put our time and energy throughout the week. All of us work in some type of way. Some of us have jobs that we go to, some of us volunteer, and others care for family or manage homes. Work takes many different shapes and sizes. And usually when we finish something, it's only then that we get a couple of quiet moments to look back and say, that mattered. That work was worth something. But on the whole, in today's busy, busy world, we rarely stop long enough to reflect on the stories behind our work. What got us here? What's the deeper meaning behind what we do? And that's what today is about. This morning, we're looking at one of the earliest harvest festivals mentioned in the Bible, from Deuteronomy 26 that Matthew just read out for us. This is called the Festival of First Fruits. And here is how it works. When the Israelites harvested their crops, they'd gather the very first portions, and they'd take that to a temple in a basket as kind of like a gift from God. And we've experienced some of that already ourselves during the service. We brought up our tins and our packets for the food bank to share with those most in need. And in the festival of the first fruits, the priest would usually then receive the gifts, and the people would respond in 3 different ways. Firstly, they would bow before God in worship. Then, they would tell their story. Finally, they'd celebrate with everyone, including those weakest in society. And we see here this beautiful mix of worship and joy, gratitude and storytelling. And here is the part that's easy to miss. When people brought up their harvest basket, they also spoke a really long prayer that mentioned the story of their people. They would say something like this: "Our father was a wandering Aramean. We were treated badly in Egypt. God rescued us, and he led us through the desert. And he brought us to a good place." But why repeat the same story year after year? Because God knew that it was easy for them to forget, easy to lose sight of how far they'd come and who had brought them there. So the basket of fruit wasn't just a gift. It was a reminder, a saying, we remember where we come from. We remember what got us here, and we give thanks. And the same is true for our lives. In the New Testament, the early Christians are described as first fruits, the beginning of God's plan to make everything new through Jesus. Revelation 14 talks about a future harvest where God gathers with his people in joy. And the thing is, we're part of that story. We too have been rescued through Jesus' death and resurrection. And so, like the Israelites, at harvest, we look at the fruit of our lives. And not just the literal fruit, but we look at our time, our talents, our efforts, and we offer what we have done to God and say, this is our story. This is God's work in us. Thanks be to God. Here at church, we've got some beautiful examples of seeing this in action. Let's take the Connect Cafe, for example. It started as an idea to have a cuppa and a chat, and we weren't really sure how it was going to work out. But this grew, and now it's a space for connection and welcome, and lots of people stay on to read scripture and to pray together. But let's not forget, This didn't happen overnight. It came from planning, from prayer, and lots of behind-the-scenes effort. And so today we pause and say, this is our story. This is God's work in us. Thanks be to God. And we too also have the example of Little Blessings, which is our baby and toddler group, which we have on Wednesdays. Dion and her team have poured a lot of work into this, making sure the families are welcomed. They tell Bible stories. They have created a space for the little ones and their parents to meet with God. And this project's only 4 months old, but already connections have been built across the community. And last week, there were 33 adults and children in this building praying together, which is just fantastic. And so this too is our story. This is God's work in us. Thanks be to God. But again, it's a lot of hard work, but it's worth it because we're offering up to God the fruits of our work as a sign of what Jesus has done for us.